So this story started out like a lot of my videos, where I go looking for a fun and easy project to work on and end up with something that's long, drawn out and complicated. I thought this coffee table would make a great project for an original Danish oil finish, but that wasn't the way it worked out. And if you look closely, maybe you'll spot the problem that I missed. But in any case, we'll come back to that later. I paid €270 for it because it is a classic Danish surfboard table from a prominent designer series, and it was advertised as being in excellent condition. The designer is Grete Jalk for Glostrup, and this table I've got here is basically a shorter, more conventional variant of the model that she is most famous for, which is basically a longer version of this model with a curved lip on the long edges. But coming in at 130 centimeters long, the one I've got here is definitely an apartment-friendly design, as I know from experience that for many people, these longer mid-century coffee tables, which can be anywhere from 160 to 200 centimeters long, are just not practical, which is another reason this one should be a little easier to sell. I'm going to start by cleaning off the magazine rack and the leg assemblies with white spirits, really just to scrub all the oil and the dirt off before sanding. For areas like this where the wood is dry and relatively clean, there's really no need to use paint stripper or anything like that. The tabletop itself is another story though. I don't know what's been done to it, but it's got some very thick finish on it, which is definitely not original, and it looks to me like some kind of generic water-based lacquer, and so I'll definitely need plenty of paint stripper to lift the finish off without damaging the veneer. In the meantime though, I'm going to get the legs and the under construction sanded. There's no way of getting around work like this, and although there is no major damage to worry about, there are dozens of scratches and dents that need to be worked out with the sandpaper. Once I've lifted that very top layer off though, I can also use the steam iron to help lift out some of those dents, and even if I can't lift them out completely, it will still cause the fibers and the timber to swell up, which in turn makes the surface much easier to sand. Getting back to the tabletop though, this is the part of the story where it all goes sideways, because once I was able to scrape some of that thick lacquer off, I was able to see what it had been hiding all this time. I don't know how I missed this earlier, but somehow the clear lacquer had camouflaged it, and to be honest, I think I really just wanted to buy this table, and so I saw what I wanted to see, rather than what was really there, because I should have picked up on this. If I had to guess, I would say that some moisture has seeped into the seams in the veneer and caused some swelling in the substrate, which somebody has then hit with the sander, not realizing how thin the veneer really was. I'm going to carefully iron the top anyway and see if I can get some of the other scratches out, but in any case, the mission from now on changes, from doing a fully original, traditional Danish teak refinish to trying to blend out that veneer blow through and lose as little money as possible. Using the orbital sander may seem counterintuitive at this point, but it's still the best tool for dealing with tabletops like this, where you've got 3 different grain directions at the corners. I just have to control the speed and the pressure and really pay attention, although I'll avoid any direct contact with the damaged areas and deal with them by hand. You may be thinking that because it's just a couple of small strips where the veneer has been sanded through, it shouldn't be too difficult to deal with, and it shouldn't impact the appearance of the table too much, which is exactly what I would be thinking as well. But we have to remember that this is not the bottom edge of a cabinet. It's a tabletop, and it's going to be reflecting light from a lot of different angles, and so any inconsistencies in the color and the texture of the tabletop are going to be noticeable. It's just a question of how noticeable. Because I'll need to use markers and wood stain to help camouflage these areas, I'll need to stain the entire piece, and so I won't be able to retain the natural color of the teak, which was my original plan. The batch of stain I've mixed up here is the same custom blend I used for the Gunny Oman sideboard back in episode 17. It's approximately 2 parts mahogany and 1 part teak, thinned down to about 30% with mineral spirits, and it's a color I've been really happy with because it just gives a really natural and balanced look to teak in particular. I'm also adding a darker, more concentrated blend of the stain on top of the first coat, really just to see if I could start darkening the overall complexion of the tabletop, which should help the camouflaging process later on. My experience has been that the worse the damage or the repairs, the more you have to darken and layer the finish to help blend them out, although I will always try to limit it as much as possible. With that in mind, I've decided that I'm going to try out a form of Danish oil on this piece to see how it comes out. What I've done here is taken some Ruston's Danish oil, some mini wax wipe-on poly and some mineral spirits and mixed them equally to create a wipe-on oil finish that should also generate a hard and protective film once it's dry. This is really just a variation of something I've seen other people do, and so I really just wanted to try it out myself and see how it comes out. The Ruston's Danish oil does have some hardening agents in it, but it doesn't contain any varnish, and so the hardness and durability of the finish is somewhat limited. This is where the polyurethane comes in, with the mineral spirits basically just serving to thin and dilute the mix so that it's easier to apply and it dries evenly. Once I've let it sit for about 10 minutes or so, I'll wipe off the excess with a fresh cloth. In total, I repeated this process twice over the course of 2 days before moving on to the dreaded touch-ups. I started out with regular furniture markers, but quickly realized that I needed something better, and so I actually ordered some of these Mohawk Blend-All sticks, which I've been wanting to try out for a while. They were really expensive, and they took over 3 weeks to be shipped from the US, but they come with this cool little booklet on color theory and how to use the sticks properly, which is something I will have to get my head around at a later date. For now though, I'm just going to eyeball it and play around and see what they can do. It's definitely going to take some time to get used to them and get a feel for how they work, but I can definitely see the potential in them for really high-level touch-ups if you know how to use them right. The big advantage I notice right off the bat with these is how well they blend it out if you rub them in with your finger, which is, I guess, where the name comes from. The biggest issue I generally have with touch-ups like this is that I can get it looking good from one angle, but when I look at it under a different angle, it suddenly stands out. Either the color tone will change, or just the texture and the way it reflects the light will be different. To be completely honest, I am pretty skeptical about any touch-ups when they're on a surface like a tabletop, and so I've been managing my expectations with this since I first realized the veneer on this table had been damaged. In any case though, I'm just going to go with what I've got here and put a regular coat of wipe-on poly over it to lock it in. But this turned out to be a really stupid idea, because even though I tried to be careful, the polyurethane still melted the wax markers and pretty well erased the larger of the touch-ups, and so now I'm going to have to wait until it's dry and do it all over again. To make matters worse, I actually think I did a better job the first time around, but in any case, what I'm going to do next is what I should have done the first time around and spray the touch-up with an aerosolized lacquer to seal and protect the area without rubbing anything off. I'm going to give it one last coat of wipe-on poly to lock everything in, and I think that will have to do for now. I guess something tells me that I'm not done with this table just yet, but what I am going to do is let you, the audience, decide. Is the repair work I've done good enough, or do I need to re-veneer the tabletop? I do actually have some leftover veneer from another project, which you guys are going to see next week, so although it is a little bit of extra work, it is doable. I've set up a poll in the community section of the channel, so let me know what you think, and if you think I need to re-veneer this table, I will. Until next time though, thanks for watching.